How many of you know there's been some confusion on the abortion issue? Ballot initiatives 439 and 434 are on the Nebraska ballot. And our current Nebraska Constitution acknowledges the right to life for all humans, currently. So I wanted Terry to come today, and pastors did too, so that she could explain clearly the difference between those two ballot measures and why the pastors of this house have made a decision to encourage you and let you know how we voted, actually, and be transparent on that, to vote against both of those measures. We do not want to enshrine abortion into the Nebraska Constitution in any way. We stand for life without compromise. And so I wanted to make sure that we had that opening. I'm going to have Terry, our political in-house expert, come and just explain the details on that. If you have any confusion, I think this will help clear it up today. Thank you, Terry.
All right. Well, thank you, Pastor Doug. And I will be real quick here, but I wanted to explain it because, like Pastor Doug said, there's a lot of confusion surrounding these ballot measures. And so I'm going to kind of start backwards. I'm going to start with 439. And I just want you to see the wording of Measure 439, if they want to put that up, just so everyone can see it. And I'm going to read it here. And it says, all persons shall have a fundamental right to abortion until fetal viability, or when needed to protect the life or health of a pregnant patient, without interference from the state or its political subdivisions. Fetal viability means the point in the pregnancy when in professional judgment of a patient's treating health care practitioner, there is a significant likelihood of the fetus's sustained survival outside the uterus without the application of extraordinary medical measures. And I know a lot of you are probably like, wow, Terry, that's a lot of words. What does that mean? So a few things I want to draw out here. First, if you look at the very first words that it says, all persons. It doesn't say woman, it said all persons have a fundamental right to abortion. So 439 is trying to say that at any stage in the pregnancy, there is a fundamental right for any person to try to ensure that there is that an abortion can take place. So that's not even just the woman now, they're saying. They're saying, oh, if it's a human trafficking situation and the trafficker forces that woman to have an abortion, they have a right to do that. So they're trying to essentially put abortion on demand here in Nebraska with 439. The other thing I want to point out with 439 really quickly, too, is that it mentions that based on, it says without interference from the state or political subdivisions, and then it says right before that, it says when needed to protect the life or the health of a pregnant patient, which is very vague, extremely vague. Because at that point, we're talking about health. Oh, that could mean your financial health. Or that could mean your emotional health. That could mean anything. They're trying to open it up so wide so that there's really no restrictions at all possible that could be even put in place. Because it said no interference, without interference from political subdivisions. So that means no state laws, no city mandate, nothing could try to prevent abortions from taking place in the state of Nebraska from 439. So that's the first one that we're going up against. And there's other issues in there, but just to save time, those are just a few I wanted to point out. Now, if I move to Initiative Measure 434. Now, if we read this one says, except when a woman seeks an abortion necessitated by a medical emergency, or when the pregnancy results from sexual assault or incest, unborn children shall be protected from abortion in the second and third trimesters. Now, this is the one that really has a lot of confusion surrounding it. A couple of things I want to point out with this one. It says, when necessitated by medical emergency. Again, medical emergency. Very vague. At this point, that can mean a lot of different things when we talk about medical emergency. And it also doesn't specify medical emergency for the mother. I just want to point that out too. The next thing I want to point out is that it says sexual assault. It doesn't say rape, it says sexual assault. Another key term there that you want to point out there, because again, that definition is a lot more broad than rape. And then the third thing I want to point out here, and I think this is one of the biggest issues that I have with it, it says that they shall be protected from abortion in only the second and third trimesters. So for those of you who don't know, about 97% of the abortions that take place here in the state of Nebraska happen within the first 12 weeks. That is the first trimester. Under 434, none of those would be protected. None of those. And then if you read this more carefully, because I missed this the first time I read this, but if you read this more carefully, it says that the exceptions are sexual assault, medical emergency, and incest, which means that abortions, if those are going to be the exceptions, those can happen at any time during the pregnancy. That can happen in the first trimester, that can happen in the second trimester, it can happen in the third trimester, if they try to claim any of those exceptions. So abortion is still being legislated or trying to be put into the Nebraska Constitution. Like Pastor Doug mentioned, the Nebraska Constitution already states in its Article 1, it says that there's a right to life. That's already in there. By putting these things, by putting either 439 or 434, we're undermining that right to life. So one of the things I just wanted to mention, because I know there's a lot of confusion, is, okay, Terry, you've laid it out. I now know what these mean. But, I've heard that a lot of times on the ballot, we have to vote for the lesser of two evils. A lot of times we have to just go with whichever one is less bad. That is not how constitutional ballot measures work. So normally on a ballot, you have two candidates, and one of them is for sure going to get in, so you a lot of times do have to vote for the lesser of two evils. That is not the way that constitutional amendments work. The way that constitutional amendments work is that you will be voting on each of those independently, which means for any of these to be successful, that they need at least 51% of people to vote for either of those. They also need, there's a second standard, they need 51%, and they also need at least 35% of the people that are casting ballots during that election to vote for those initiatives as well. There are two standards that they have to meet before we even talk about whether or not they're getting amended into the Constitution. So this is not one of those situations where you have to vote for the lesser of two evils. You can vote no on both of them, and they can both fail. I want to point that out, because that's something that's been talked about a lot. The other question that I get a lot is, Terry, well, what about working incrementally? If we're moving a little progress forward, that's better than not doing anything, right? 439 for sure doesn't move anything forward. That moves us way backwards. 434 doesn't move us forward either. Like I just mentioned, there is already a right to life in the Nebraska State Constitution in Article 1, Section 1, where it says that all persons have a right to life. So 434 does not move us forward at all. So there is no incremental process if you try to vote for, it's to say that to vote for 434. There's no incremental process there. The last thing I want to point out, and I'm hoping it's no one in this room, but I hear this a lot, so I want to talk about it, is that, Terry, well, this is a political decision. This is a political move. And so, politically it makes sense. And so we should vote for one of these, because it's just, that's the strategy that we're going for. And so we just got to think about it in political terms. We all know this is not a political issue. This is a spiritual issue. This is about the blood of these innocent children. And so when we go into those ballot rooms, we need to understand that when we are putting a check mark for or against something, we need to understand what that means. A check mark for 439 or a check mark for 434 is putting abortion into the Nebraska Constitution, which we don't have now. That is taking us back. And so that's just something I wanted to encourage people, because I know there's been a lot of confusion about, well, this seems like it's better than the other one. We don't have to settle. We don't have to compromise. We can continue to stand strong. And so I just wanted to encourage everybody that you do not have to compromise when you go into the ballot box and you get to these ballot measures. You can vote no for both. We do not have to use the lives of innocent children as political bargaining chips so that we can score a political win.